Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we have a very sad story about this locomotive. My worst locomotive. And I'm going to tell you the story of this locomotive. So this video comes with a warning. Do not, danger, red alert, do not buy this locomotive. Now, granted, Hornby probably built loads of these locomotives, and out of hundreds of locomotives, I might be the unlucky sod that this happened to. But if you are thinking about buying this locomotive, proceed with caution. This locomotive is a Hornby Class 20 with TTS sound, and I bought this back in 2017. Here is the box, and here is the code. So she is a BR Class 20 20163, product code R3394 TTS with TTS sound decoder fitted. So DCC fitted already and with sound. And I paid £115 from a very good retailer here in Ireland for this locomotive, and its recommended retail price was actually €132. So I thought it was a very good bargain. Picking up a class of locomotive that I like. She's DCC fitted and she has sound. And to be honest with you, yes, the sound was really good. But from day one, I had major issues with this model. And I'm going to go through that right now. So be warned. So on the first day after returning from the shop, I put this locomotive on my DCC track and I was ready to program it into the Hornby Select controller. Now, I bought this a long time ago, so this was one of the first versions of this Hornby Select. And when I say that, that means that the firmware was one of the earliest types. I think it's called 1.2. That's an important thing to bear in mind before this. I put this locomotive on the track, ready for programming, but before I could even touch the controller, this locomotive took off down the track at a rapid rate, and I had to go running after her and take her off the track real quick. So I immediately knew something was wrong. It happened a couple more times and I said, no, something is definitely up. Maybe the decoder inside this locomotive is faulty. So what I did was I packaged it all back up correctly into the box, went back to the retailer, explained what happened, and they finally very kindly gave me a replacement locomotive. After coming back from the retailer and putting it back on the track to have another go, a reprogram. Now what is a second locomotive, it did exactly the same thing and it took off down the track at a tremendous rate. So I thought to myself, something is seriously wrong here. I had to go online searching forums to see if anybody else had had this problem. They didn't with this particular locomotive, but they did with other models in the TTS range. And some people were suggesting that Hornby had reissued select controllers that were now upgraded. So from the 1.2 firmware version, I contacted Hornby and explained what the locomotive was doing, and I thought it had something to do with this controller, and they said yes, the newer locomotives that were being released might not be able to be operated by this controller if the firmware was the old version. So they upgraded it, and I packaged up this controller and sent it to Hornby, and they very kindly upgraded it to the 1.5 firmware. I came back home, put this locomotive on the track with the newly upgraded Hornby Select controller, and yes, success. I was able to program her in and operate the locomotive. But that is only the beginning of the story. Now, just to show you, here we have the receipt from Hornby. So I've covered over my details here. Hornby Hobbies, their details there, and the date. So this all happened in August of 2017. I remember it well. So down here we have repair Hornby 1x R8213 select unit upgraded to 1.5 version. Tested and everything's okay. Payment received. Okay, so the Hornby Select was upgraded and everything should be grand. And when you have a locomotive for a long time and you're getting used to it and you kind of know yourself, somebody coming along to your layout and just looking at the locomotive running around the track, they might not notice anything in particular. But even when I had this programmed in, there was something about this locomotive. It was just an instinctive feeling that this locomotive, there was something with it. I can't describe it. Sound worked perfectly, ran along the track, but there was something about it. And what I like with any locomotive, you run it incorrectly, half an hour in each direction. You take care of it. You clean the wheels. You use oil very sparingly. I went through many traction tires with this, and I would replace them. So every year in around March, it was a yearly thing that I would replace the traction tires on this locomotive. I took care of this locomotive, and because it was just a feeling that there was something not quite right with this locomotive, I just ran her, and after about 20-25 minutes I would stop her. Other locomotives on the layout, all of them, yeah, I could run them for a very long time. No issues at all. They could run for 30 minutes to 40 minutes to 45 minutes without issue. But this locomotive I was very suspicious of. And as I said, I bought it in 2017. This happened last year in 2024. So what is that? 7 years? Something like that. I had this locomotive on the layout, couple of carriages behind it. I think it was 3 or 4 coaches behind it with the sound on. I popped down out of the attic for 2 minutes, and when I came back, the locomotive had stopped right on this corner here. Not running, no sound, nothing. And when I looked at the Hornby Select controller, there was an E for error in there. So I thought, well, I won't panic. Let's investigate this situation. So, like any modder would, if a locomotive isn't working and it's completely dead, you start investigating. So what I did was, first of all, I unplugged and then set back up the Hornby Select controller. Next thing I did, I checked the track, made sure it was clean, I gave it a clean, and that was all perfect. Of course, I cleaned the wheels on the locomotive to make sure they were absolutely free of any kind of dirt at all. Still nothing. So this went on and on and on. I hit the internet and started Googling and all kinds of forums to find out, YouTube, you name it. I could not find the reason why for 7 years this locomotive ran perfectly, well, almost perfectly. There was always a feeling about it, and then suddenly one day, nothing, and it's completely dead. So what do you do after that? You have to go further. So to get into this locomotive, buffers removed at either end, 2 little pins in the side here. You just flex the body out slightly, the body comes off. So we can now see inside this locomotive. Here's the motor, and here is the 8-pin socket for your DCC chip. And I had a look around the whole locomotive. Nothing seemed to be strange or out of the ordinary. And I said I need to try and eliminate things. Back on the internet for a couple of hours and a couple of days. Nothing. Okay, so I removed the sound speaker. Don't ask me why I did that first, but in retrospect, it actually didn't make any difference at all. Remove the sound speaker. I can use that as a spare. Presume the speaker still works. And then I eventually was able to take out the decoder itself, and on closer inspection it did look like something had happened. But why did it happen after 7 years? Now, as I said, I always had a feeling about this locomotive. There was something strange about it, and I said, well, okay, I have the DCC decoder, TTS sound decoder out of it. I will put a blanking chip. I have loads of blanking chips, and I put one in here, placed it on the analog track, tried the locomotive, and yes, it worked. So I knew it had to be something to do with this chip here. But then I thought more about it, and this is how I came to this conclusion, that maybe the chip was okay, because when running this on analog and on my Gauge Master, the Gauge Master, not that horrible cheap nasty Hornby Select DC controller there, this Gauge Master, which is a really good quality controller, I noticed this locomotive was jumping around like a jack in the box, and I thought, it's working now, but it just isn't working like it should be. And that's where we're kind of at today. So if I bring this locomotive over to the track now here, I will show you. So here is the Class 20 by Hornby on the track, formerly DCC, formerly sound, now just analog. So here is our combi. We select the direction and we start applying a little bit of power and see what happens. And if you look at this locomotive, you may think that's okay, but she kind of jumps and stutters and all is not well. So let's bring her back and maybe give her a little bit more speed. See that? See, she slowed down there, then picks up pace. No, there's something definitely up with it. Now, on another occasion, this was a couple of days after all this transpired, and now I have her on analog. I ran her on the Hornby Combi for a little while. There she is there. And this motor, I don't think it was my imagination, she seemed to be very, very warm. Now, I think what happened was there was a spike in this motor for some reason, and it fried the chip. I think it fried the chip and destroyed it, and obviously destroyed the DCC and the sound, and now she is just analog. Since then, I have not run this locomotive on the Hornby Combi. I have actually ran her on the old Hornby R965 control, and she seems to be a bit smoother on that. Having said all of that, I do not think and I do not trust the motor in this anymore. So, what are the options? So, what options are available to me? You don't like to be beaten as a modeler, you know, you like to overcome things and proceed the best way you can. So, what can I do? Well, I could replace the motor in this. I could replace the motor in this because I do not trust this motor. This is basically, this Hornby Class 20 TTS is basically molded from the old Lima version back in the late 80s, maybe early 90s, and the motor is exactly the same. And I could go to eBay, to somewhere like Peter Spares, and buy a new motor, or I can just sell this off as it is, as a spares or repairs to either a local model shop, or keep it as a spare for myself and go out and buy either a Lima Class 20, which won't have the 8-pin socket, but I can hardwire in a decoder myself, or the other option is either keep this as a spare or sell it on as a spare as a repair and just buy a Bachmann Class 20, because I do like the Class 20. In retrospect, I paid £115 for this, and it was supposed to be DCC and sound, and now it is just analog. Very disappointing. As I say, I could be the only sod that this happened to. This video is not an attack on Hornby, it's an attack on this model. I have some very good, very reliable Hornby locomotives, both DCC and DC, and I have no issues with them at all. They all run very well. So this video is a word of warning. If anybody out there has Hornby TTS or this Hornby Class 20, I'd love to know what your experience has been with them. Have you had all the issues and problems that I have had? It's just disappointing, and I hope happened over such a long space of time. There's something about this motor that just is not quite right, and it either overheated or had a spike or something in it, and it destroyed the DCC and the sound in it. So it's a word of warning. And you know, these things happen. But do you know, for €5 more, just a sheer €5 more, I bought that Bachmann Class 24 with sound. It cost me €120 back in 2015, and it is so reliable. Like that, I might have just got lucky on that one. Or I could have bought a Lima Class 20, the old late 80s, early 90s, and picked one up for anything between 40 to 60 euros off eBay. But no, I'm the sod that bought the 115 euros Hornby TTS sound and ended up with all these problems. So that's it on this video. We're going to have a look at a couple more locomotives, and I'm going to do a couple of running sessions. Until then, everybody take care, look after yourselves, and I shall see you in the next one. Take care.